Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Sports Huddle. We're focusing on some basketball and football tonight. We're here to take your comments, topics, anything you guys want to talk about in the world of college sports we can do right here on this show. And I welcome everybody who's watching live tonight on TGI Sports Talk, of course, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube platform, and of course Northeast Streaming Sports on Facebook and YouTube. And you can see us 9 o'clock, a replay of this show 9 o'clock Saturday mornings on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel, so make sure you check that out. Thumbs up DDH, and quick shout out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media, and especially the Sports Corner that he does every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern with Smokin' Jim Frazier on WBVP 1230 AM 99.3 FM. Guys, a couple of quick notes. Next 3 weeks. Next week I'm traveling. I'm in Atlanta to a trade show. Then I'm on vacation for 2 weeks on a cruise ship. We will do some Sports Huddle stuff ad hoc. Not sure when we'll be on live, but I'll try to give you guys some notice. So you know, we'll try to do it. It always depends on the internet connection. Next week, there'll be no show. Maybe we'll do it Saturday morning. We'll see. But there'll be nothing. What was I going to say? 2 weeks following, I'll be on a cruise ship, so I'm a little reliant on the internet connection, see how well it is. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's a little piss poor. But we'll talk about all that. We'll get into some college stuff. We'll look at the recent polls. We'll go around conferences, a little bracketology. What else we're going to talk about? Some coaches in the hot seats, obviously. Same thing in football. People who need to win immediately. We'll look at the new hire at Michigan and Sharon Moore in football. We'll look at maybe a way too early top 25 for next year. And maybe some transfer portal stuff. So, and whatever you guys want to talk about in the world of college basketball, college football, we'll do it all. Dave Guyette, good evening. Good to have you with us. Dave's a big Syracuse fan, as we all know. And Syracuse, 14-7 at the moment, I believe. Probably at best on the NCAA tournament bubble. But a lot of things can happen. And, you know, they're playing okay in Autry's first year out there. And a good evening to Rick Sherlock. Good to have you with us here tonight. Not sure who Rick follows in college basketball. Georgia's got to be a little tough to follow in college basketball, as they've had very little success in the last, 40 years. One of my favorite coaches, though, went there and could not make it turn around, and Tom Crean, so they may be dead to the world out there. I don't know. But let's dive into college basketball first tonight, and then we'll go to football. But we can bounce around if we have to. I just want to look quickly at this week's college basketball. Excuse me, I've been saying football so long. I gotta get out of that habit. Not a lot of change at the top in the AP poll. The first 5 teams are the same as they were last week. We do have one first place vote going to Houston this week that wasn't there last week, but UConn stays number 1, Purdue number 2. They get the bulk of the first place votes, 48 for UConn, and Purdue gets 14. North Carolina stays at 3, playing great basketball under Hubert Davis in his 3rd year now. Houston, we talked about at 4. Kelvin Sampson, listen, one of the underrated coaches in the country, in Kelvin Sampson. Tennessee, I said this last year around the same time. This might be Rick Barnes' best team. Their defense is tenacious. They're 15-4 and number 5 in the country. 2 of the biggest movers this week. Wisconsin, 16-4 now. We'll look at the conference records in a second. They move up 7 spots to number 6. Duke moves up 5 spots. We talked a little about Duke last week. They move up 5 to number 7. Kansas at number 8 drops a spot. Marquette moves up 5. Watch out for Marquette come March. I'm telling you, this team played a monster of a non-league schedule and came out of it with just 3 losses, I think. Now they got 2 losses, I believe, in conference. We'll take a look at that in a second. They're hanging in there. I'm moving up, I should say, to number 9 or back up to number 9. Kentucky drops 4 spots to 10. Arizona hasn't been playing well since they lost to Florida Atlantic. They're now down to number 11. Iowa State, the biggest mover of the week, up 11. Some allegations of, to go along with my talk about Michigan and everybody does something hidden edge. Now there's allegations against the Iowa State basketball team of, looking to get an edge to win games. Anyway, they're at number 12 now. Creighton at number 13, they're up 4. Down 4 is Illinois. A lot of off the court issues there. Bruce Underwood trying to keep it together. They fall to 14. Texas Tech up 5 to number 15. Auburn. Listen, Bruce Pearl had his team playing some great basketball, and they've lost a couple now. They drop 8 spots to number 16. Utah State from the Mountain West. They keep telling you, watch out for this league. It's very underrated. Baylor drops 3 spots to number 18. New Mexico up 6. Another Mountain West team. Very strong Mountain West team, up 6 or 18-3 now at number 19. Florida Atlantic trying to rebound from a couple of bad weeks after playing or upsetting number 3 at the time, I believe, Arizona. They're up 2 spots, to 20. Dayton loses this week, falls 5 spots. Still having a great year so far out of the A-10. BYU 15-5. They're down 1. Oklahoma drops 12 spots. We knew when they got the Big 12 play, Oklahoma might get exposed, and that's what's happening so far. Alabama up 2 spots to get back in the top 25 at 24, and TCU moves into the top 25 at number 25. Drop from the rankings this week, Colorado State, again from the Mountain West, and Memphis, Penny Hardaway's team. Just missing out, or the closest couple teams, were South Carolina, San Diego State, and Memphis. It won't be long till March Madness, Dave. We get, when I get back from vacation, we're going to be hip deep probably in conference tournament play or getting close to it. And that's when things really get exciting in my mind. So some interesting developments here in the top 25. A lot of movement week in and week out. We're going to go around conference to conference right now. But as far as, let me look at the bracketology before we do that, because that's what everybody cares about, right? Right now, the number 1 seeds, this is Joe Lunardi from ESPN. That's whose bracketology we try to follow. What do you got here, Rick? No team favorite for you. Just enjoy the college game and style play. You and me both. I mean, again, I'm a big Marquette fan. Because of my youth growing up, loving Al McGuire. Gosh, when I was just, 71, 72, 73, and I was just before my teen years, and then following them as they went to a final against NC State in 74, winning a title in 77. And I've kind of, they're still there in my heart. But, I root for local teams. Siena, I like to do well. They're not doing well this year, obviously. Albany State not doing so well. But I'm kind of the way. College, I like to follow good stories, and there's some good stories out there. The number 1 teams right now, as per Joe Lunardi, is the number 1 seed overall, by the way, is Purdue, ranked second as we speak. UConn is another one of the number 1s, and the other 2 would be Houston and North Carolina, according to Joe Lunardi. Right now, the last 4 teams to get byes would be Memphis, Texas, Providence, Texas A&M. The last 4 teams in the conference, these would have to play in the first 4 games. Nebraska, the surprise out of the Big Ten. Seton Hall, until recently, playing really, really good in the Big East under Shasheen Holloway. Colorado and Boise State would be the last 4 in, according to Joe Lunardi. First 4 out, Villanova having a tough couple of years trying to continue the consistency that Jay Wright had brought that school as a coach. Still having trouble in that regard. Cincinnati, Washington State, Gonzaga. Joe Lunardi has out of the tournament as we speak right now. The next 4 out would be Oregon, Kansas State, Florida, and Butler. Right now, a couple of notes. St. John's and Rick Pitino, I believe, are sitting at a 7 seed somewhere here, but in the tournament. We'll take a look at some of the conferences here in a second. What we got here, Januel, I have no college team instead looking at draft prospects. Well, that's good. I mean, it's hard. In my mind, it's hard. I don't know. The one thing I don't like about college now is the one and done stuff, and it's hard to build a like when I was a kid, and then we're talking about 50 years ago. Kids were there, and you could watch them from they were a freshman or a sophomore, maybe till they were a senior. Build 3 or 4 years, and in that time, other guys came in, and you had the same time frame with them, so you could follow a team from year to year. But now it's so hard with these kids, 1 and done and 2 and done. It's hard to really, follow a team and know who the heck is there from year to after year. So I understand that too, Jen Will. I hope I'm probably saying your name wrong, and I apologize. But if it's not Bob and Rick, I have trouble. Rick's father-in-law played for Siena. Did he play for Bill Kirsch? Rick? Siena, until the early, I want to say maybe the mid-'70s, they were not Division I. They played Division II, I believe. And they went Division I just before, I think, Kirsch retired, or just after. I can't remember. But they had some really good teams. They had some really good teams in the 80s under Mike Dean. Then again under, oh God, who's the guy that went to Georgia Tech? I'm forgetting his name now. Took him to an NCAA tournament. Can't remember his name. Fran McCaffrey after that. Then they had some down years. Louis Orr was pretty good. Was there 1 year and went to Seton Hall. But Siena's had some really good coaches come through here. Mike Dean came through here, and he got the Marquette job after putting Siena on the map, as it were, in the 80s, 90s, 80s and 90s. Hello, Steve Orpello. Good to have you with us, I should say. I'm going to say Jen, if that's okay. Siena, we're in the States. No, it's not Siena in Italy. Siena is a Jesuit school up here near Albany, New York, in Loudonville, New York, actually. Plays very good Division I basketball in the MAC conference. Has made several NCAA tournaments and even won games. So, listen, this isn't a powerhouse like Syracuse, but it's definitely a very good school, basketball school. Next year, things aren't going so well for the coach Marcelino and the team. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll take any of your comments tonight, guys. Anything you want to talk about? College basketball we're on right now, but we'll talk some college football in a bit. I do want to go around the conferences just a little bit, maybe a little bit more than we did last week. We won't look at coaches' hot seats tonight, I don't think, but we will in college football. I want to talk about some coaches that really need to get it going next year. But in college basketball, we'll look at the. I'm going to give you now each week we'll go through the conferences, and one pick leagues I'll give you a pick for me to make the tournament, and then if they have multiple picks, I'll give you who I think will potentially be in. We'll see how I match up with Joe Lenardi at the end of the day. The Atlantic Sun 1-bid conference. Eastern Kentucky is 7-0. Stetson is 5-2, as is North Florida. I look for a sleeper here. Watch out for Lipscomb. Lipscomb. You never say that. Lipscomb Bison. I've watched them play a little bit. Florida Gulf Coast is another team that now they beat Florida Atlantic, which is a big upset. Don't sleep on a big upset here in this tournament to get the 1 bid. So, again, right now the big favorite would have to be Eastern Kentucky at 7-0, but we'll see how that plays out. What Paul Hewitt? Oh, sorry, Mark. I'll come right back to that. What do you think? what do you think of, NBA or college basketball programs having international networks like academies? I'm not sure if I'm following the question that closely. When you say international networks, you mean like satellite schools in, say, Italy or Germany or wherever? If you can clarify a little bit, Jen, I can help you there. Mark Robinshaw. Paul Hewitt is the guy that I was trying to recall. Yes. Took Siena, I think, to multiple NCAA tournaments, turned that into a job at Georgia Tech, later on at George Mason, and things didn't go so well at those schools. Not sure where Paul Hewitt is today, but Paul Hewitt is the guy I was trying to think of. Thank you very much, Mark Robinshaw. Welcome to the show. The American East, where our hometown UAlbany, well, not our hometown for me anymore, I guess, but still close enough. UAlbany is 3-3, 11-10 overall. Vermont is the, perennial favorite in this league, and I don't see any different. I mean, a team like UAlbany could potentially, I think they're good enough this year to pull off an upset in the American East Conference tournament, but I think Vermont, because the best team here gets to play the championship game on their home court, which is a big advantage in this conference. So I'd like Vermont to get to the NCAA tournament here. Well, maybe at the very least, workouts or training camps, potentially. I mean, a lot of the college teams do take international trips. I know UCLA, when the Ball kids were there, went to China to play 1 year. So a lot of these universities do take foreign trips and do a little barnstorming, if you will. So they do some of that, Jen. So good question, though. Look at the NBA. We're always looking to open up new markets here in the States for all our sports. The NFL, the MLB. I'm surprised that the National Basketball League doesn't play more games overseas during the season. They got days off, so they can do it, I think, easier than, say, baseball can do it. They do it to start the season sometimes. I think the NBA could play some games across the pond, if you will. The American Athletic Conference, so some new teams doing well here in this league this year. Charlotte's first year in the league, doing well at 7-1, 13-7 overall. Florida Atlantic hanging in there at number 20, as I mentioned, after that big upset of Arizona had brought them to the brink of the top 10. And then they fell back with a couple of bad losses, including that Florida Gulf Coast game that I talked about. Those two teams would be the favorites. I think Florida Atlantic will come out of here. I do think this team could get two bids, though. And I think Memphis and Charlotte will probably vie for those. Maybe they could sneak a third bid in, but they're probably going to have to go on a really good postseason run here for sure. In the A10's, listen, a little underrated. Dayton's number 21, best run they've had since the COVID year when they were ranked in the top 5 in the country, and the postseason tournaments were all wiped out by COVID. That was when Obi Toppin was leading that team, future Nick and former Nick now. But Dayton is 7-1. Richmond is 7-0 in the league. They're 15-5. Dayton's 17-3 overall. I would say these teams will both get in. I think Dayton will win the conference. I think Richmond gets in, and you got to watch out. I think you could also potentially get another at-large bid in potentially Loyola or maybe even VCU. Again, they would have to have a good, strong finish here to get more than two bids, I believe. The ACC, you look at it, may be 2 or 3 bids only for the ACC. North Carolina and Duke both playing really well. North Carolina 9-1, Duke 7-2. We've turned back the clock for these two schools, vying for the top spot in the ACC, and they'll fight out through the tournament to see who's going to reign supreme. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Duke wins this conference tournament and wins the automatic bid. Carolina gets in easy. Will have a high seed. Virginia 6-3, 15-5, playing a little bit better recently. They've been a bit up and down, so they can't fall backwards. But I think that might be all they get. Syracuse is 5-5, 14-7 overall, but they've had some bad losses. Other tournament teams from last year, Miami's not playing well. Clemson, who just got left out, not playing well. Virginia Tech, usually a good team, playing very up and down basketball. I think it's possible this league only gets 2 bids. That's, again, unheard of, but let's see, what does he have here? He had the A10. This is Joe Lunardi. He's got the A10 getting 2, the American getting 3. That's kind of where I was. He's got the ACC with 3 right now as well. Where did I leave off here? Big 12, probably the deepest country deepest conference in the country in my mind. What we got here? Daniel Barry's. How you doing there, Daniel? Good to have you with us. Check out Daniel Barry's sports highlights. Good stuff over there. Daniel, always good to have you join us, as you were. Sure. The Big 12, again, this is probably the deepest conference in the country, especially with Houston joining it. The other teams that are new, UCF, Cincinnati, not doing as well as maybe they would like to. BYU is number 22, but only 3-4 in the conference. Probably still well within reach of the NCAA tournament, though. I think Houston's going to win this league. Kelvin Sampson, very underrated coach, but you can't count out Kansas. Obviously, Bill Self always has his teams ready to play come tournament time. Jamie Dixon and TCU had a great run last year. They're starting to pick it up a little right now. They're at number 25. Oklahoma's at 23, but with a cement block attached to them, as they have not played well as they've gotten to the conference. They are 4-4, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to manage this. So here's the teams I would have in from the Big 12. Houston, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, TCU, Baylor, BYU. That's 7. They could get 8 bids if Kansas State or Oklahoma steps up. Right now, Joe Lunardi's got them with 9 bids. So I've got them a little bit lower than that. So moving on to the Big East. This league has really been, I think, interesting the last few years, and this is going to be another interesting year and a great tournament they're setting up for, I think. UConn, the number 1 team in the country, 18-2, 8-1 in the league. Marquette, as I said, played a monster non-conference schedule. Only lost 2 games. They've lost 3 in conference. They're 7-3. They've now won 5 in a row, though. And Shaka Smart has got this team rolling. Creighton will definitely be in. Seton Hall, I think Shasheen Holloway's done a really good job. They're 7-4. I think they get in, and I think St. John's is in. That's 5 teams. Unless one of these teams totally collapses, right? Then all bets are off. But I think that's 5 teams right there. Providence on the bubble, Butler on the bubble, and that's probably it. So they could have between 5 and, say, 7 teams. What does Joe Lunardi say? 6 teams. So he's got them right in the middle of what I just said. Interesting. Big Sky, 1 bid conference. Eastern Washington, 7-0. Northern Colorado's 5-2. Got to like the favorite here, the undefeated team. We'll stick there. If I'm going to pick an outsider, I'll pick the Montana Grizzlies to potentially do some scaring and stealing a bid in the conference tournament. Big South, another 1 bid league. High Point Panthers, 7-0. Got to be the favorite. I will give you an outsider to watch in this league. Gardner Webb, running Bulldogs. Saw him play the other night. Played really good basketball. Only 10-12 overall. Obviously, anybody from this league has got to win conference to get in. Big Ten, another deep league. Wisconsin, 8-1, moved up to number 6 in the country this past week. Purdue, 8-2. They're 2nd in the country, 2nd in the conference. Illinois, struggling a little bit with off-the-court issues, but Bruce Underwood's kept them together, 7-3 in the conference. Surprising Northwestern, 6-3, 15-5. Another surprise, Nebraska, 5-5, 15-6. Indiana, 5-5, 13-8. Michigan State trying to battle back after an awful start, fighting their way back. Big disappointment here is going to be Michigan at 2-8, 7-14. You're going to anybody but Juwan Howard have already been fired. The teams coming out of the Big Ten: Wisconsin, Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, Indiana. I'm going to say 6 teams. Possibly a 7th, depending on what Michigan State can do. Joe Lunardi has 6. All right, let's move on to the Big West. Probably a one bid league. UC Irvine Anteaters are tied with the Tritons of UC San Diego. These are all all Cal schools, by the way. UC Davis is 7-2. I'm going to go out on a hunch here and say Long Beach State. Watch out for Long Beach State in this conference tournament, throwing a wrench into things. The Coastal Athletic Conference, Drexel 8-1, Townsend 6-2, Charleston 6-2. I like Drexel. You want an outsider here? Watch out for the Hofstra Pride, sitting back there 4-4, 11-10 overall. Could do damage in the conference tournament. Conference USA, Sam Houston Bearcats are 5-1. Louisiana Tech right behind them and tied with them actually at 5-1. The team I like here is New Mexico State or Western Kentucky to potentially step up in the tournament and upset the top seeds. The only independent left in college basketball, Chicago State, 11-15, not going to the tournament. The Horizon League, Green Bay is 9-3. Oakland Golden Grizzlies are 8-3. I'm going to take Oakland to win this league and make it to the tournament. Ivy League, one bid league, obviously. This is wide open between Cornell, Yale, and Princeton. The other schools, I think, are just going to be all Florians. They do have a conference tournament now to decide this, where they did not for years. Just because I've always rooted for Princeton, I will pick Princeton here. The Metro Atlantic, which we talked about, Siena's league. Siena's really bad, 2-7, 3-17 overall, not going anywhere. St. Peter's and Quinnipiac, 8-1 for Quinnipiac. St. Peter's 7-2. They're the class of this league right now. I'm going to go with St. Peter's to get in and maybe do some damage like they did 3 years ago now, I guess, against when they beat one of the top ranked teams in Kentucky and made it all the way to the Elite Eight. One bid league. Iona, by the way, without Rick Pitino, who's really got St. John's turned around and starting to hit a great stride. Iona's struggling without him, 4-4 in the league, 9-10 overall. The Mid-American Conference, one bid, I would say, Akron Zips, Toledo, the 2 favorites. Watch out for Central Michigan being a surprise in this conference. The Mid-Eastern Athletic, again, a one bid league. The 2 favorites here would be North Carolina Central and Norfolk State. And I'm not going to pick an upset there. One of those 2 teams, I think, will get the bid. Missouri Valley Conference, maybe you get 2 bids here. Indiana State playing better than they've played in decades, maybe since Larry Bird led them to the NCAA final. Their coach, Josh Schertz, he's got quite a story. He went from tennis prodigy and high school dropout to coaching one of the best teams in the middle of the country here in Indiana State. In the Missouri Valley, going to be the favorite. 18-3 overall, 9-1 in conference. I think Drake or Bradley could sneak in that large bid here if Indiana State gets in that large if one of those teams knocks them off. So I think the Missouri Valley could come away with 2 bids here. Joe Lunardi does not see that. He sees this as a one bid league. I think there's a potential bid thief in this conference. Mountain West, you're going to have multiple teams here, maybe as many as 5. Utah State 7-1, New Mexico 6-2, Boise State 5-2, San Diego State's 5-3. I think Utah State, New Mexico, Boise State, San Diego State. That's 4. I don't think they can get a 5th. I'm going to give them 4 bids into this conference. Joe Lenardi has them with 5. He must have probably Colorado State in there. All right, if we go to Colorado State, we've got 5. I'll say 5 as well. Northeast Conference is a 1-bid league. Central Connecticut, Merrimack leading the way at 6-1 and 6-2 respectively. I would say they're going to be the favorites to get this bid. Watch out for Lemoyne sitting back there at 4-2 overall. I'm sorry, 4-2 in the league. Ohio Valley is going to be 1-bid conference. Morehead State is going to be the favorite. Maybe if you want an underdog, look at Eastern Illinois. Pac-12. Pac-12 has fallen on hard times, man. Arizona's leading the league at 6-3. Oregon's 6-3, but only 14-6 overall. Colorado 6-4, 15-6 overall. Washington State 6-4, 15-6. Arizona State 5-4. USC 4-5, 9-11 overall. Mitch Cronin's got to be feeling the heat out there. USC, even with Bronny James now back on the court, 8-12 overall, 2-7 in the conference. I've got Arizona. I think this is a 2-bid league. Lenardi's got them with 3. Arizona, Oregon, and Colorado would have to be 3. I don't think we're going to go deeper than that unless there's an upset. Patriot League, to me, this one's easy. Colgate, 7-1, tied with Lafayette. I think Colgate wins this conference and gets into the tournament again. Southeast Conference, making a bit of a resurgence. Alabama leading it and making their own resurgence after a tough non-conference outings. They're 14-6 overall, 6-1 in the league. South Carolina coming on strong of late, 6-2 in the conference. Auburn struggling a bit with 2 consecutive losses, but still ranked 16. Kentucky fell to number 10 this week, but they're 5-2. Tennessee, as I said, maybe, I said this last year, it came back to bite me in the ass. Maybe Rick Barnes' best team. Ole Miss has spent time in the top 25 this year, 18-3 overall, 5-3 in the league. Florida, 4-3 and 14-6. Georgia playing a bit better, 4-3 and 14-6 overall. I think the big disappointment here has got to be Arkansas. Eric Musselman's had some really good teams, and they've fallen back 1-5 in conference. 1-6 in conference, 10-10 overall. The teams that get in from the Southeast: Alabama, South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Georgia as an outsider. 6 or 7 teams. Lenardi's got him with 8. He's got Florida in it, must be as well. Interesting. The Southern Conference. Sanford is leading the way at 7-1. UNC Greensboro 6-2. I will put my money in a tournament on the outsider Chattanooga Mocs. Always like Chattanooga. They've won 4 in a row now, by the way. 14-7 overall. Southland 1-bid conference. McNeese State. McNeese, I guess they're not McNeese State anymore. Cowboys are 8-0 in the conference. Texas A&M Corpus Christi is 6-2. Lamar is 6-2. I'll take the favorite Cowboys here. Southwest Athletic Conference, Grambling at 5-2. Southern at 5-2. Alabama State 5-2. I'm going to go with a big upset here and say Arkansas Pine Bluff comes back from 4-3, wins this tournament. Summit League, another 1-bid league. The South Dakotas are up there, North and South Dakota at 5-2 and 4-3. I think they'll fight it out. Oral Roberts do not count out. Oral Roberts has had some pretty good teams. This is not as good as they've been here in recent years, but let's see if they can put it together for a stretch run and maybe win this tournament. The Sun Belt 1-bid league, Appalachian State 8-1. James Madison, who we liked a lot, they ran into some hard times. I thought they might go undefeated in this league, maybe even get to the tournament undefeated, the NCAA tournament. And they've lost 3 games in the last couple of weeks, falling out of the top 25. I still like James Madison to rebound and win this conference. West Coast Conference, going to be a 1-bid league probably for the first time in a while. St. Mary's has gotten hot, won 8 in a row after a tough start. They're 7-0 in conference. Gonzaga 7-1 in conference. 16-5 overall. Santa Clara back there at 6-1 and 15-7. The problem is they could have a bid stolen from them here, because I think it could be a 2-bid league with St. Mary's and Gonzaga if they play well, meet each other in a conference championship in a very close game. If Santa Clara or San Francisco or Loyola, I think the league's more wide open than it's been in a while. If they were to win, I think you'd get one bid out of this league. Western Conference, we got one more. What's this? One more. The Western Conference, Grand Canyon's 9-1, followed by California Baptist. I like Grand Canyon here to win this league. So there you've got my own little version of bracketology. What else is going on in the world of college basketball? Right now we got a couple games going. Purdue's winning 47-39. Georgia winning over Alabama right now in the first half, 41-27. And Baylor losing to UCF at the half, 27-24 in the first half. We'll give you scores as we go during the tournament play for sure, but not so much today. And by the way, North Carolina got beat last night by Georgia Tech in the final second, so we'll see them probably dropping in the polls a little bit. The Wooden Award winners have been the finalists, I should say, have been announced. Obviously, Zach Edney leads the way there. Probably going to win this award for a second consecutive year. But here's the top 20 competing for this award. You got, I'm not going to go through this today. We'll go through this another time. Sam Izzo. I used to work with Sam Izzo at DeCrescenti. That's too funny. Tom Izzo gets his 700th career victory at Michigan State on his birthday, no less. And happy birthday to Tom, and congratulations on getting to the 700 club. Great job. What else do we want to talk about in college basketball? You guys got anything you want to chat about in college basketball? Now is the time to do it. We talked about Bubble Watch. But guys, the shows may not go an hour and a half, as we get into, especially once the tournament's gone and stuff. We'll talk about as much as you guys have to talk about. But I want to get, I just want to make sure we give college basketball its due, and we give college football its due as well. So looking at let's move on to college football if we can. If you guys, again, any topics, any comments, you just post them and we'll talk about them. It's your show as well. Big story. I think the biggest story is probably Sherrone Moore getting the head coaching job at Michigan. I think they did the right thing. Probably the only thing they could do. Let me switch the banner here. I should have switched it before, and I didn't. Sherrone Moore gets the head coaching job at Michigan. Really, they had no other choice. And again, he's very deserving. I don't want to say they had no other choice, like a gun was held at her head, but they could not take a chance on a mass exodus, which might have even been worse than what Alabama went through with Nick Saban leaving. Sherrone Moore staying because the players love him, I think will stabilize the program from a exodus standpoint, and I think give them a continuity that they probably need coming off a national championship. I don't expect there to be major sanctions against this team, especially now that Harbaugh's gone. What's the point? And again, this stuff has been going on for freaking ever in different places, right? We just had a bit of a scandal in Iowa State in basketball. Everybody's looking to get an edge, guys. Never forget that. Everybody's looking to get an edge, okay? What else is going on? Tennessee and Virginia are suing the NCAA over NIL rules. The attorney generals of both these schools filed an antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA that challenged its ban on the use of name, image, and likeness compensation in the recruiting of college athletes in response to the association's investigation of the University of Tennessee. They seek to undercut NCAA rules against recruiting inducements and claims the association is enforcing rules that unfairly restrict how athletes can commercially use their name. Come on. We've already been through this. They are getting the advantages of money. Why are we having an antitrust suit for something that really is already in play and probably out of control? I just don't understand. I don't understand. Sorry. One thing, I didn't talk about in college basketball that was kind of news. And it's not, I've lost it as far as my top headlines. The Big 12, when they go to 18 teams, will only have, I believe, 12 teams being invited to their conference tournament. So that bears watching once we get to that point next year. Not the first conference to try this. It's worked in some other places. We'll see how it works. Big 12 unveils their 16-team schedule. We'll look at that later on. I guess the other thing we want to talk about tonight, college football coaching hot seat, right? Who's on a hot seat before we even start the season? I can tell you who's on the biggest hot seat of anybody. That's going to be Billy Napier at Florida. Not only have they not performed in his 2 years there up to expectations, they did have a pretty good recruiting year this year, but they've had some guys leave. But they also got some off-the-field issues, some recruiting violations to worry about. So I think Billy Napier is a guy to worry about. Sam Pittman, he made it to year 5 despite a 4-8 record this year. He got just one SEC win last year. It looked like he might take the fall. He's got a new offensive coordinator in Bobby Petrino, which, what's Bobby Petrino doing back at Arkansas? He's got the hot seat definitely squarely on his butt. Dave Aranda from Baylor, he was back. He was one of the hot guys back in 2021. But since then, he's gone 9-16, 3-9 last year, and the cupboard is getting bare, man, at Baylor. They brought in new play callers both on offense and defense. Aranda will actually call the plays on defense. And he likely is going to need to at least win 7 games and win a bowl game, maybe, to keep his job. Billy Napier, we've already talked about. Not just for his own performance, but the fact that his his AD is in a bit of a hot seat himself. And if he loses his AD who hired him, he's really going to have no place to go. You want to keep an eye on Chip Kelly at UCLA. He signed a contract extension through 2027. There was some talk the end of this year that it could be the end of the road for Chip Kelly at UCLA, but he managed to turn it into a challenging season into an extension. He's 25-13 the past 3 seasons, but he hasn't really engineered a big breakthrough. They lost to Boise State in the LA Bowl this year. I think, again, Chip Kelly's going to be 60 years old. I think Chip Kelly needs maybe a 9-win season to secure his position despite this extension. Charlie Lee at Vanderbilt. Again, Vanderbilt coach is almost always on this list. He left Notre Dame, where he was, had a prime coordinator gig at Notre Dame and left for one of the nation's toughest jobs. He's 9-27 overall and just 2 wins in 24 outings in the SEC. He'll likely lose his job after next year. Ryan Day at Ohio State. It's hard to believe it. A guy with a 56-8 overall record is squarely on the hot seat. He's got to beat Michigan this year. Ohio State is all in. Big transfers. Will Howard from Kansas State. The 5-star freshman quarterback from Alabama, whose name's escaping me at the moment. A lot of top transfer talent coming in, along with a great recruiting class. Michigan's going to be down, coming off a Big Ten championship and a national championship. Lost a lot of talent. he's got to beat Michigan. He's got to get to the playoff most likely, and he needs a deep run in the college football playoff, maybe to keep his job. I know it's hard to figure, but look at John Cooper. You don't have to look any further than John Cooper, who won about 90% of his games at Ohio State while he was there, but was well under 500 against Michigan. You can't do it. Kalini Sitake at BYU. He does have an extension that takes him through 2027. It was a reward for a stretch where he was 21-4 through 20 and 21. But he went just 8-5 in 2022 and 5-7 last year in their first year as a Big 10 or Big 12 team. And he's a popular BYU grad, but BYU doesn't stand for back-to-back losing seasons. If he does that, things will get a little noisy from the peanut gallery, I'm afraid, for Kalini. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt, in trouble. Guided Pitt to the championship game in the ACC in 2021. Been bowl eligible in 7 of his first 8 seasons, but the Panthers were horrible last year. 3-9 overall, 2-6 in the ACC. His comments following the drubbing by Notre Dame drew the ire of his players and fans alike, leading to an apology. He's under contract through 2030, but we've seen schools eat bigger contracts than that, haven't we, Jimbo? Guys who may be on a different type of watch, more for retirement reasons and age reasons. Mac Brown going to be 73 years old just before the season starts. It'll be his sixth year of his second stint at North Carolina. Hasn't been able to get over the hump. What the hell's going on here? Hang on one second. Granddaughter pictures. Hasn't been able to get over the hump. They've had decent seasons, especially for North Carolina. Well, much more was expected, I think, from Brown. I don't see him staying much longer. He had a really good run in TV before this. He'll probably go back to TV. This could be Mac Brown's last roundup. Kyle Whittingham with a great run at Utah. He stated he doesn't expect to coach past his 65th birthday, which is coming November 21st. So I don't think he's retiring on November 21st because it'll be in the middle of the season. And I don't think he'll retire this year, but I think it's going to be time for Utah to realize Kyle Whittingham, who's had a great run at Utah, probably second, maybe not even second best to Urban Meyer's run there. He'd like to reach the college football playoff, I'm sure, this year, maybe to cap off his career. He does especially bear watching, as a successor likely is already in place in Morgan Scaley. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. His son was fired last year as the offensive coordinator, as you know. He'll turn 69 on August 1st. He's in good health. He could likely coach as long as he wants, but he's the longest tenured coach in America, in the country. Iowa, I think if Iowa makes a playoff, I think Kirk Ferentz could walk off into the sunset. Something to think about. Those are from the power conferences. In the group of fives, you've got on the hot seat, you've got Will Hall at Southern Miss, Mike Houston, East Carolina, Stan Drayton at Temple, Mike Bloomington at Rice, Mike McIntyre at Florida International. You want to keep an eye on Ball State's coach, Mike New, Sonny Cumbie, Butch Jones, always on the hot seat at Arkansas State. Charlie Huff at Marshall, Blake Anderson at Utah State. Shane Clark is surprisingly at Appalachian State. They've had a pretty strong run for a few years. Last year is a bit of a downer for them. And some older guys to keep an eye on out there. Jeff Tedford in his second go-around at Fresno State. Jim McElwain at Central Florida had a great run at Colorado State. Not quite as great at Florida, but he didn't fall flat on his face. Don Brown at UMass and Casey Keeler at CM Houston are guys to keep an eye on. What else would we want to talk about tonight? You guys aren't helping me out a lot tonight. That's all right, though. We don't mind. We're going to go through, and this won't be mine, but this will be, what are we looking at here? This is going to be, I was going to do this. I don't know where my, Sharon Moore. I was going to go through the much too early top 25, and now I can't find my notes. I was going to use Mandel's top 25. I would expect some bounce backs from some teams next year, by the way. I think Notre Dame's going to have a very good year. I can't find, let me find, hold on one second. I bet you I can find it this way. Bear with me, as we say, bear with me. It'll be our first year heading towards the first 12-team playoffs, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Here we go. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Number one, this, and we'll see whether we agree or disagree with Mr. Mandel with all of these picks. I don't know if we have any comments. I turned off the comments page. Okay. Georgia. Most notable change in Athens, besides Kirby Smart plucking new co-defensive coordinator Travaris Robinson from Alabama. Always news when Alabama grabs, or Georgia grabs someone from Alabama, or vice versa. The Dogs are 42-2 over the past 3 seasons. They return a wealth of experience on defense. For this team, you know, Carson Beck's going to get better. He does lose Brock Bauer, which is a big loss, of course, but he's got some new targets coming in Miami's Colby Young and Vanderbilt's London Humphrey. So number one, Georgia. Number two, Ohio State, who we just talked about. They went on a big spending spree. They kept their own wide receiver, Trayvon Henderson. They kept Igabuka and Burke, the wide receiver and cornerback, respectively. They kept Tuamalawa, a defensive end, and Jack Sawyer, defensive end. They all will be coming back, which is a big plus. They went out and got, as I said, Will Howard from Kansas State. Ole Miss running back Quishon Judkins, one of the top runners in the SEC. Alabama offensive lineman Seth McLaughlin. And most stunningly, maybe, Alabama's safety Caleb Downs, who was named a first-team All-American as a freshman. I think Ohio State, again, is primed to make a run at a national championship, and Ryan Day may need to come up very close to that and beat Michigan in the process to keep his job, as we talked about a little bit ago. Texas. Quinn Ewers will be staying. He's got Arch Manning behind him. They added Oregon State wide receiver Silas Bolden and wide receiver from Alabama, Isaiah Bond, and a tight end from Alabama, Black. So they to replace guys that had left, really thoroughbred guys that have left the program for either graduated or went to the NFL or left via transfer. So I think Texas will be primed to make a serious run at the championship. Oregon, Dan Lanning has made several big portal ads already. We know Dylan Gabriel got about $2 million to go play quarterback there. And since then, he got Texas A&M wide receiver Evan Stewart, Duke defensive back Brandon Johnson, Washington cornerback Jabbar Muhammad. Just a very talented team already before these additions. And I expect Oregon to be, again, making a run maybe at the Big Ten title. Maybe they'll play in the title game against Ohio State, which, again, they could hurt themselves. Both teams will make the playoff, though. Right now, my prediction is it's possible this 12-team playoff will have one group of 5 team and 11 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC. I shouldn't say that. That's wrong. We're going to have the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10. Well, the SEC, that gives them 2. So I guess there'll be 2 teams. The SEC will have their championship teams in. The Big 10 will have their championship teams in. You'll get one from the Big 12, and you'll get one from the ACC. So I guess you could say there'll be 9 or 10 teams from the SEC in this first field. That the SEC and the Big 10. That's my prediction right now. We'll see whether that stands up later. Ole Miss, who's absolutely loaded, by the way. Jackson Dart is back. They did lose their top running back, but he brought in. When I say he, I mean Lane Kiffin brought in Trey Harris, Jordan Watkins, Caden Prexon. Listen, Kiffin is the king of the transfer portal. He's shown everybody else how to do it. And Ole Miss is ready to make that next step, I think. Be careful. They could win the SEC next year, and they'll definitely be a playoff team, and maybe a dangerous one at that. Michigan, we've got at number 6, a drop-off we got to expect. You lost your head coach. You lost your quarterback. You lost your top running back. They do have Edwards back at running back. He put off the NFL for at least a year. Colston Loveland returns. And a bunch of young wide receivers. So Sherrod Moore will not have an empty cupboard when he gets there. He'll have to figure out the quarterback situation. But don't be surprised if he finds one in the spring transfer portal opening. Notre Dame, 7. I think Notre Dame's going to be at least this good. I think Notre Dame could be primed to make a run at a national championship. They're going to get in to the field, which again knocks that 9 down to 8, the SEC and Big 10 teams. So my bad. Marcus Freeman has got, he's still been learning. He's been learning mode the last 2 years, and he hasn't done badly in my mind. He's now got Riley Leonard coming in, who, if he can stay healthy, I think really brings something to this Notre Dame offense. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. They've added 3 quality wide receivers. They also brought in some guys on the defensive side of the ball. This is all transfers, not to mention, of course, a top 10 recruiting class for Notre Dame. I think Marcus Freeman maybe gets over the hump this year. Still not sold on a coach, Rick isn't. Well, again, we're never sold on a coach till he wins, right? I'm never sold on a coach until he wins. So, Marcus Freeman has not fallen on his face. When you look at what some other previous guys have had to do at Notre Dame, remember Jerry Faust, Kyle Whittingham, or not Kyle Whittingham, what's his name? Herb Whittingham, Bob Davies. He's done better than any of those guys in my mind. Maybe not a great decision to bring Sam Hartman into that offense this year. I don't know. But I like what they've done. I love Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard, healthy, is going to be one of the most underrated players in the country coming in to the season. Alabama down to number 8. Lots of big exoduses. Caleb DeBoer is going to have a lot of holes to fill. I expect them to be very active in the spring portal time frame, and got a lot to replace. They've lost, Bond and Downs and Proctor. Running backs Williams went to Florida State. Florida State got about 8 guys from Alabama. There was no good time for Nick Saban to leave. When was he going to announce? And people have gotten on him a little bit for the timing because of the mass exodus of players. But Alabama's in better shape than Washington, where Caleb DeBoer came from. He brought a couple kids with him, and he left behind 2 starters. 2 starters out of 22. I can't do math. I guess 24 when you count kicker and punter. 2 out of 24. That's not good. Washington's going to be in for a big, long rebuild. Jed Fish, good luck. You're not going to find them on this list of top 25 teams. Utah, number 9, as we talked about, Kyle Whittingham's now been there 2 decades, and I think he's probably exceeded, just because of the time he's been there, what Urban Meyer was able to accomplish at Utah. He actually put Utah on the map, but I think Kyle Whittingham's taken his program to another level. He'll have, and Ken Gifford, I wish he was here to hear this, a 7th-year quarterback in Cam Rising, missed all of last year, and forwent the NFL draft another time to come back and play. They've got veterans at running back. They've got veterans on the defensive side of the ball. I expect Utah to probably compete and probably win the Big 12 championship next year in my mind. Hello, beautiful bearded bastards. How are you tonight? What am I going to call him, Rick? All right, I'll call you beautiful. Don't get upset. Good to have you with us, Joe. Please, you guys, newcomers, please like and share, like and follow TGI Sports Talk, and please share it with your friends. Anyway, Utah, I think they win the Big 12. Oklahoma State's going to be really good. Mike Gundy had an interesting team last year. They had a bad start, a really good run in the middle of the season, and tailed off at the end. Had a bad loss to UCF when they were probably positioned to be in a Big 12 championship game. I think they're back there this year. Ollie Gordon is back, and he'll carry the load once again for Mike Van Gundy. But he's brought in some good transfers, and I think Oklahoma State could be a top 10 team next year and be the one that pushes Utah for the top spot in the Big 12. Louisville, Jeff Brom has a 4th-ranked portal class, according to 24/7 Sports. We'll see whether that's enough. I'm not a big fan of this Louisville program in football. There always seem to be more. There's a lack of substance to this program. It feels all the time. They'll have a big win over somebody next year, and then they'll have a big loss to somebody. Pittsburgh's only, signature win all year was beating Louisville right after they'd gotten themselves into the top 10 in the playoff conversation and gave themselves a chance at the playoff. They could have beat a Florida State team who they didn't even beat without Travis Jordan. Again, there always seems to be a lack of substance to this team. Missouri, who I love, maybe better than 12. We talk about 2 teams that could be upstarts next year and really upset the apple cart, say, in the SEC. Watch Ole Miss, loaded for bear, Lane Kiffin is, and also I'm forgetting the coach here at the forget the coach's name at Missouri, but that's okay. They've got him 12. I might have him in my top 10. This team is I think, ready to come back. They got a veteran team. Brady Cook is coming back to quarterback. A couple of his top wide receivers are back. The defense, which had a lot of concerns, did bring in Clemson defensive back Oriental Pride, which brings them some experience. They've got to improve on defense. If they do, this team could make some noise in the SEC next year. Arizona loses Jed Finch, which is the biggest loss, but new coach Brett Brennan has managed to keep most of the players from leaving. A couple of guys did follow Jed Finch to Washington, including their top running back at Coleman, but he managed to keep most of the players intact. Arizona had a great year last year. They're going to a new league. They might end up the second or third best team in the Big 12, the new Big 12 this year. Florida State down to 14. They're losing a lot, including Travis Jordan, who was a great player. But they brought in DJ Uiagalelei, formerly at Clemson and Oregon State. He's making his tour of the country. Plus, they bring in a bunch. I said 5 Alabama transfers. Really good defensive end from Oregon State named Loahala. And Georgia outside linebacker Marvin Jones Jr. But some of the young receivers are a little iffy and will have to step up, or Florida State will fall out of the top 25. Oklahoma, they got problems at quarterback. They bring Casey Thompson back, who I believe, no, he started at Texas and he went to Nebraska. Sorry. His father played at Oklahoma, though. And it's going to be interesting to see whether he can step up from where he was at Texas, Nebraska, FAU. To me, a kid who just hasn't reached his potential. We'll see whether Oklahoma. I think they're going to live and die with what happens at quarterback. Penn State, to me, it doesn't matter. There's 16 here. James Franklin's going to lose to Michigan, lose to Ohio State, not get in the playoff. And if he does get in the playoff, he'll lose to somebody in the first round. Tennessee, I don't think this team finishes in the top 25 myself. They've got them at 17. They've lost a ton of talent the last 2 years. Not as good as advertised last year. Kansas at number 18. Lance Leopold hired Jeff Grimes to be his OC, formerly at Baylor, formerly at BYU. Could be a really good offense. If Jalen Daniels stays healthy, he's a really good quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the country when he's healthy, but he doesn't stay healthy. But he's got Devin Neal back and Daniel Hinshaw running back and veteran wide receivers. The defense, like a lot of teams in the Big 12, is suspect. Clemson, another, and again, I don't like the rules myself, Dabo, but you got to go and participate. He didn't sign one single transfer. He did pursue a couple linemen, but he didn't land anybody. They won 5 straight to close out the season, but I don't think Clemson gets back to elite status until Dabo accepts the way the rules are today. And if you're not going to, it's not a level playing field if you're not going to participate the way the other guys are. I don't like it any more than you do, Dabo. But you got to go out and do it, or you're not going to have a job, dude. LSU, Brian Kelly turned over his whole staff pretty much. New defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, new D-line coach, new O-line coach. He's got to replace his quarterback. He's got to replace most of his top players. And by all reports, at least through back channels, he was trying to secure the Michigan job. Really, Brian? You got a 10-year freaking contract. You're 2 years into. I don't understand. Texas A&M, new coach Mike Elko, got to improve the defense, need a quarterback. Top 25 would be a good start for Mike Elko, believe me. Iowa, they'll finish around 20, 25. You know, he's brought in Tim Lester to be his offensive coordinator. Tim Lester, I believe, was with he was former head coach at Western Michigan, but I believe he was at Colorado for part of last year and then got fired by Deion. But we know this team's going to win a bunch of 13 to 10 games. NC State, Grace McCall is coming to town for a 4-year starter at Coastal Carolina, a tremendous player. He's got all the tools to shine here. He's got some weapons at wide receiver, weapons at running back. NC State could be a surprise in the ACC. Iowa State, Matt Campbell. This team's been a bit of a disappointment the last 2 or 3 years. Matt Campbell was everybody's hot commodity coming out of the COVID years when Iowa State did very well. They have not done as well the last couple of years, and his star is not shining quite as bright. And here's one that I'd like to see happen, but probably won't. Miami, Mandel has Miami at 25. I'd like to think this team, and maybe if they start off outside the top 25, would be best for this program, because the last couple of years they've been ranked too high to start the season, and have seen it fall apart to, I think, back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons. Gone is Tyler Van Dyke. He's off to Wisconsin. In is Cam Ward from Washington State, who originally was going to go in the NFL draft and decided not to, and he transferred, I'm sure, for millions of dollars to Miami. So if this offense can learn to get out of its own way, it's possible Miami finally starts to make some progress. And if they don't, I got to put Marco Cristobal on this list of guys watching their back. That's what I think anyway. You guys tell me what you think. You know what I think, guys? I think we're going to wrap it up tonight because I don't have a lot else to talk about right now. So next few weeks, this show, you can watch a replay of the show on Saturday at 9 a.m. on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. We'll play it several times on Facebook, I'm sure. But we'll be preempted next week with me traveling for work to Atlanta. And the next 2 weeks I'll be on vacation, so we will try to do the best we can from the deck of a cruise ship and do some college basketball, at least for you guys, the next couple of weeks. If not, we'll be back in the end of February. If we don't see you before then, we'll be here getting ready for March Madness before it actually hits. Now, March Madness really kicks off the end of February, guys. So, middle of February, conference play is here. Deep into it, we're starting to see who's good and who's bad. Something here. We got to do it. Have a good night, buddy. See you Friday morning. I'll see you Friday with Are You Serious with the Mad New Yorker, and Sunday, before I hit the airport, I'll be on live with somebody streaming content. Have a great night, guys. Keith Engle, TGI Sports Talk, College Sports Huddle. Have a great night.